It's time for your Wednesday Wellness Wake Up, brought to you by Napa Massage and Body Care. Please welcome Dr. Sharon Ufberg. Hello, Dr. Sharon.
Good morning, Kelly. It is a beautiful and dark morning here in Napa.
Yes, it's that time of year. I missed the sunrise completely.
Me too. Listen, I wanted to let you know that Dana Dornsife is here today with us from the Lazarex Foundation. I'm just so excited that she took the trip and came up early this morning. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Good to have you back.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Dana has began a foundation back in 2006, the Lazarex Foundation, and for really compelling reasons. And I thought, Dana, perhaps you could just tell us your story of why you started Lazarex Foundation.
Well, sure. I'd be happy to. In 2003, my youngest sister's husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at age 42. And, pancreatic cancer is basically a death sentence. And he and my sister had 3 young children at the time. The youngest, my niece, was 4. And knowing that it was a death sentence for him and having his diagnosis and his percentage of survival was 1/2 of 1%.
Oh, my goodness.
I just said to myself, okay, well, if we do the same thing everyone else did, we're not going to get different results. And so I immediately started combing through his options in clinical trials and found the process extremely challenging. The way information is presented, you really do have to have a medical degree in order to be able to understand everything. Medicaldictionary.com became my very best friend. And, it took me a month of full-time work combing through all of that information and coming up with a list of only 3 or 4 clinical trials that he could participate in.
What's a clinical trial?
A clinical trial is a drug trial that people go through, patients participate in, to test upcoming drugs, cutting edge, medical technology in the search for a cure for cancer or any disease,
or
really.
It may not, or
it
they may get the placebo, or is there but it's a chance.
It's a chance, and when you're staring at 1/2 of 1%, your chances are not very good to begin with. So that was a huge challenge, and I didn't have cancer, and I wasn't taking care of a cancer patient. So when you add those 2 factors in on top of trying to do all of the research, it really is a huge challenge. The second thing that really impressed me was Mike was accepted into a clinical trial. He responded very well. My whole goal in getting him into a clinical trial was to have my niece, to have Mike live long enough so my niece would remember her dad.
Yeah.
And, he lived for 19 months, which is a significant period of time for a pancreatic cancer patient. And she still has his coach's T-shirt from the season that he got to coach her T-ball team, and she wears it now as a nightshirt. So that's really, special for me to see. But when you're going through cancer treatment, you're treated in a communal environment, and you make friends with the people that you're being treated with, and you sort of create this support network. And because Mike responded so well to his clinical trial, all of the people that he was being treated with started saying, Mike, what are you doing? I'm really interested in what you're doing. I'd like to be doing the same thing. And he would say, oh, just call my sister-in-law, Dana. She'll help you. And so, I would get these phone calls, and we'd go through, all of the logistics involved. And there was kind of this build-up, this crescendo of hope, where perhaps they were feeling hopeless. And then when they understood the costs involved, it was just kind of like bursting the bubble, or putting a pin in a balloon, and I could literally feel the air getting sucked out of the phone, the conversation,
what kind of costs
the
would
room.
Be involved? You're offering yourself for science.
Well, the drug is actually covered by the drug sponsor, but unfortunately, 90% of the time, a clinical trial is not in your backyard. So if you're living in Kansas and you need to go to New York, you're looking at airfare. You're looking at having to make usually a 6-month commitment. So, end stage cancer patients who, they're physically, emotionally, spiritually, and financially wiped out, and they just don't want to spend, what little they have left on a chance that they may survive. And, they're typically looking at, having to send their son to college or, wanting to preserve whatever assets they have for their family. And so Lazarex, steps in and provides financial assistance to cover travel and living expenses and parking and rental cars and even some basic medical procedures and testing that go along with participation in clinical trials that the patient has to bear. And by removing those two factors, from the equation, we allow cancer patients to focus on what's best for them, their health, and their family.
It's so compelling when you think about that you had the good fortune of having the resources, both, time and financial, to help your brother-in-law, and that when you saw his kind of support group or his community of other cancer, patients, that you saw, well, this just doesn't seem fair, this isn't right. And that was really the initiation of the Lazarex Foundation.
It was. I really had a moral problem with the fact that the size of a person's checkbook is what stood between them and the potential for life.
Right.
It's, one of the things that Dana and I have talked about was this new pilot project that Lazarex is now launching to really look and say, okay, we've done this amazing work for end-stage cancer patients with clinical trials, but how can we save more lives? How can we be? And so tell us about the new pilot project.
Well, my prayer every night is that, hopefully patients someday won't need Lazarex Cancer Foundation and we can go away. That would be the best answer. And in trying to address that prayer, I started doing a lot of research, and what's come to the forefront is that if you look at all of the various populations we have, whether you're African American, Latino, Asian, Caucasian, diagnosis, the percentage of diagnosis when you adjust for population is very similar. However, percentage of mortality is much higher in amongst the minority communities. And the reason for that is that typically minority communities have less access to health care, or, they're uninsured. So what happens is they don't get tested. They don't go through screenings. They don't have checkups. And by the time they're diagnosed, they're already stage 3, stage 4, where your percentage of survival is much lower. So my hope is that they will never need Lazarex Cancer Foundation, right, for clinical trials.
Right.
But in order to help minorities move further up to increase their percentage of survivability, they need to be diagnosed at stage 1 and stage 2. And that is all revolves around being aware of the symptoms, understanding what you can do to minimize your risk, and taking advantage of screening programs and treatment, that's out there sooner.
I think one of the beauties of the screening process is that it's getting people asymptomatic. It's finding people before they're having symptoms.
Right.
And I think very often there's lots of different cultural norms where people aren't looking to do prevention, to do screenings. And I think that's the thing that I found that Dana is really working on, trying to get people from a variety of minority cultures to recognize the importance of screenings prior to having any sign that you may be sick.
If you are a single mom and you had to choose between putting food on the table for your children or having a mammogram, what would you choose?
Well, food.
Right. There's no question in your mind, but that you are going to choose to put food on the table for your children. And that's the problem. The problem is that we need to address that lack of access to cancer screenings, to allow a single mom, you know, who's uninsured to be diagnosed sooner when her prognosis for survivability is much higher.
Absolutely.
And I think what's so exciting is that not only is Lazarex Foundation looking at this clinical trial end stage, but they're looking at the whole spectrum from screening to testing to, you know, how the treatment, the early stage treatment. Dana, thank you so much for being with us today. If someone out there in the listening audience would like to get in touch with the Lazarex Foundation, do you have some info where they could find you?
Absolutely. You can go to our website, which is lazarex.org, and it's LAZAREX.org. Or they're always welcome to call us at area code 925-820-4517.
Thank you so much, Dana, for your really important work.
That is great. And thank you to Dr. Sharon. That's your Wednesday Wellness Wake Up, brought to you by Napa Massage and Body Care, helping the Napa community and its visitors to relax and be well since 1999. Well, coming up next.